The deadline passed 2 days ago. February 6th, 2026. The comment period is closed, folks. And what happens next is what everyone needs to be watching, because this isn't speculation. This is structural documentation from the Federal Reserve itself moving into implementation. And if you're not paying attention, you're missing the biggest institutional signal we've seen all year. The Federal Reserve Board closed public comments on a payment account prototype. The comment period is over. That means we're moving from proposal to action, people. This is the Fed designing a special-purpose reserve bank account specifically for institutions focused on payments innovation. Let that sink in. The Federal Reserve is creating a streamlined account structure for payment innovators, and the comment period closing means they're ready to move forward. Hello. Here's what the proposal says, folks. Any institution legally eligible for Federal Reserve accounts can request a payment account. The key phrase is payments innovation. The Fed is creating a specialized infrastructure pathway for institutions already in the payment space. This is huge. What does a payment account holder do? Uses its account for clearing and settling payment activity. Clearing and settling, everyone, that's operational language, not custody, not speculation. Live payment infrastructure integration with the Federal Reserve System. What? And here's the critical part, folks. These payment accounts are designed to pose limited risk to the Federal Reserve banks. The Fed has assessed the risk framework. With the comment period closed, this is moving into implementation. Reserve banks would conduct streamlined reviews of requests, meaning the infrastructure pathway is being cleared for rapid deployment. This is insane. Now you're probably thinking, but what does this have to do with XRP? Everything, people, everything. The timeline of this proposal closing February 6 aligns perfectly with the institutional DeFi roadmap for XRP. I'm going to show you exactly how. We know from Ripple's documentation that XRP powers 4 specific functions: real-time settlement between institutions, FX conversion at the protocol level, on-chain collateral management, and credit facilities built into the XRP ledger. All documented, folks. Each replaces a pain point costing billions annually. Settlement drops from days to seconds. FX spreads collapse with no intermediary. Collateral becomes programmable. Credit gets issued against real-time balance sheets. This is the back-end infrastructure nobody's watching closely enough. This is becoming the rails that traditional finance runs on, everyone. When the Federal Reserve creates payment accounts for clearing and settling payment activity, what payment infrastructure is positioned to integrate? What protocol is built for real-time institutional settlement with regulatory clarity? The answer is staring us in the face: XRP. While other projects fight for regulatory clarity, XRP has it. The SEC versus Ripple case established XRP in secondary sales is not a security. Clear commodity treatment. And that clarity is what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said is non-negotiable. This isn't coincidence, folks. Bessent said, "It is impossible to proceed without clear rules of the road. The Clarity Act must pass." If market participants oppose regulations, he said, move to El Salvador. You can't make this up, people. That's a line in the sand. The U.S. will have regulated crypto markets. If you operate here, you play by the rules. Period. This means institutions need assets with regulatory certainty. Protocols that integrate with U.S. infrastructure without legal ambiguity. XRP is one of the only digital assets meeting that criteria. Hello, this is the structural piece everyone's missing. Paul Atkins, the SEC chair, announced the SEC and CFTC jurisdiction battle is ending. The rules are being harmonized, folks. This has been the biggest regulatory bottleneck in U.S. crypto history. Different agencies, different rules, constant uncertainty. XRP, already determined not to be a security in secondary sales, gets clear commodity treatment. This is massive. Developers and institutions can build products without wondering if they're violating one agency's interpretation versus another's. The offshore exodus stops. The U.S. becomes the clear jurisdiction. This is the structural unlock everyone's been waiting for. And it's happening as the Fed moves this payment account proposal into implementation. Everything is aligning right now. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. But if you want to understand how to position yourself ahead of these institutional shifts, I've built a comprehensive crypto course that breaks down the technical infrastructure, regulatory frameworks, and strategic positioning around digital assets like XRP. The link is in the description below. This isn't financial advice, but if you're serious about understanding what's unfolding right now, you need the full picture. Back to the Fed. The proposal creates payment accounts as part of broader payment infrastructure. We know from Amplify ETF analysis that XRP is set for greater demand in 2026, tied to FedNow and Fedwire integrations. FedNow is the Federal Reserve's instant payment system. Fedwire is the backbone of large-value interbank transfers. This is freaking nuts, folks. Amplify is projecting XRP integration within these systems this year. This isn't a random crypto fund making predictions, everyone. This is an ETF issuer mapping institutional demand drivers based on infrastructure rollout timelines. What does that mean? XRP becomes the bridge asset for instant settlement in federal payment infrastructure. That simple. Super freaking bullish, especially if it plays out. Banks using FedNow leverage XRP for liquidity and cross-border components. Fedwire transactions need instant finality, which settles through the XRP ledger's rails. This isn't speculative DeFi, people. This is the federal payment system potentially using XRP as operational infrastructure. Let that sink in for a second. And when the Federal Reserve creates a payment account structure for clearing and settling payment activity, the timing is not coincidental. This is all connected. The comment period closed February 6th. We're in the implementation phase now, folks. The Fed has assessed the risk framework. They've defined the operational parameters. Institutions focused on payments innovation can request streamlined access to reserve bank accounts for clearing and settling payment activity. And the only digital asset with the regulatory clarity, technical infrastructure, and institutional positioning to integrate with that system at scale is XRP. This is the reset moment. Now let's connect all the dots, everyone. Bison demands regulatory clarity and tells rule resistors to leave the U.S. Atkins harmonizes SEC and CFTC rules, ending the jurisdiction battle. Ripple's institutional DeFi roadmap shows XRP positioned as the settlement, FX, collateral, and credit layer. Amplify ETF projects demand acceleration through FedNow and Fedwire integrations. And the Federal Reserve moves forward with payment accounts designed for clearing and settling payment activity. You see it all coming together? This is documented infrastructure convergence, folks. The Federal Reserve is creating the account structure. The Treasury is demanding the regulatory framework. The SEC is harmonizing the rules. And XRP is the only digital asset positioned to integrate across all three layers. This isn't hype. This isn't clickbait. It's all documented. You want to know what the reset looks like? This is it, people. Institutional capital has been waiting because it legally cannot deploy without clear frameworks. The payment account proposal shows the Fed is building the infrastructure pathway. The Clarity Act shows the Treasury is demanding the regulatory framework. The SEC and CFTC harmonization eliminates the legal bottlenecks. And XRP's institutional DeFi roadmap shows it's positioned as the operational layer for real-time settlement, FX conversion, collateral management, and credit facilities. None of this is speculation. When an ETF issuer forecasts demand based on central payment integration, they're not gambling, folks. They're modeling institutional flows. Amplify has to justify their analysis to investors and regulators. They won't publish timelines unless they see concrete developments. This is the bridge between everything. It's all pointing to the 2026 inflection point where XRP transitions from crypto asset to payment infrastructure. The foundation is set. The infrastructure is live. Regulatory clarity is being finalized. And the Fed just moved past the comment period on the account structure institutions will use. This is insane, everyone. The deadline passed February 6th. Infrastructure is moving into implementation. If you're not paying attention, you're missing the biggest structural shift in crypto history. This isn't price predictions or moon talk. This is institutional infrastructure integration at the Federal Reserve level. And XRP is positioned at the center. I just hope you're paying attention, folks, because I can only bring so much good news. So here's the reality. The institutions are moving. The regulators are aligning. The Federal Reserve is building the infrastructure. And if you want to stay ahead of what's unfolding, you need to understand the full scope of how these systems integrate. That's exactly what I break down in my crypto course. The technical architecture, the regulatory frameworks, the institutional positioning. Everything you need to understand what's happening right now. Link is in the description. This is not financial advice, but if you're serious about positioning yourself intelligently in this space, you need the complete picture. Stay ready, stay liquid.